Right, the Futura comes with a margin guide which just attaches onto the edge of the base plate. The T-bar slides in using that knob, and when you tighten that knob it aligns it perfectly parallel to the slideway. The slideway is the bar that the cutting head runs on, and these need to be perfectly parallel with each other, and that's set up in the factory beforehand. There's also the squaring arm. This again clips in 45 degrees, hinge it down, then allow it to drop and just slide it all the way towards you, and that should bring the squaring arm and the end plate in line with each other. This is where the material sits across here. So the squareness of this, or the 90-degree setting of this and this end plate with regards to the slideway, is again set up in the factory. So for the board to lay flat, you can use a book. Needs to be about the same height as the base plate. That will support the mount board, or as optional extras we have clip-on support arms. The more permanent option is to build this area of the work table up so that it is so the base plate is actually set into the table. So we can lift this above margin guide for the moment. We are cutting with the vertical cutter along this side of the slideway, and I'm going to use our measuring stop here to cut a 45 centimetre by 35 centimetre blank. So make sure this is up against the arm. Reset 35. Yeah, if you're doing a lot of sizing, you can take the margin guide off of the machine. Makes it a little more convenient. So there's our 35 by 45 centimetre piece of board. So if we want to do a simple border on here, 5 centimetres all the way round, there are 3 settings we need to make. Margin guide here, we slide that and set here for 5 centimetres, and that tells us the border width. This is the start of cut, and we again adjust that to 5 centimetres. That will tell us how far down from the top edge of the board that the cut will start. And this, the end of cut, will tell us where the cut in relation to the bottom edge of the board will stop. So it's 5 centimetres, 5 centimetres, 5 centimetres. So when you cut a picture mount, we're cutting it so that the board is upside down. So the face side of the board must be supported from the underneath to stop it bursting through when the blade goes through the board. So we do that by introducing the slip mat. This is a piece of mount board, or we're using pulp board here. It needs to be a smooth faced, at least 1 millimetre thick, and able to take a tip of the blade and support this face on the underneath. So we place the board in the machine so that it's tight up against here and here, and that tells us the distance between the top edge of the board and where the blade is going to come through on the underside of the board. The underside of the board is the front of the mount. So But before we do that, the important thing is to check our blade depth. So that blade depth looks to be a little deep, so I'll remove the blade holder. We undo the screw at the back, perhaps half a turn, slide the blade back so that it's hard onto the screw, place that in, and I like to push down on this back here while I tighten that. So press on there, engage the blade down to the bottom stop. So then we need to make a check. Is it cutting through? It's barely not cutting through, just so the accuracy of this machine is such that we can put this back in. I can extend my blade back to where we were, do the operation again, and it will follow down that same line. This time we're going all the way through. Okay, so that's how fine the adjustment can be on the end of cut, on the blade depth. So we rotate it. You can rotate it clockwise or anti-clockwise. I prefer to do it anti-clockwise. It's just what you get used to. Press on the finger to lock the cutting head in place, but also to measure the distance, as we said before. Push the blade in before you release that all the way towards yourself. Now, as this is the first mount that I've cut on this machine, I will turn it over, and after the first two cuts you can get an indication as to whether it's overcutting or undercutting. So we have an undercut on this cut and we have an overcut on here. So we need to then analyse, is that at the start or the end of the cut? Well, because the board is upside down, let's take this cut. The start is at the top. The start is now as it comes down here. So that distance there, which I'm guessing to be 3mm, is an undercut, so we need to extend the length of the cut by 3mm. So I look here, and on the knob we have a plus and a minus, and so I want to turn it in the plus direction by 3mm, which you can either measure on this scale or this scale, it doesn't matter. So measuring 1, 2, 3mm. You can get a rule on it and measure it, but usually doing it by eye is enough. So our end of cut, I think that is overcutting by a bit less than a millimetre. So as it's overcutting, we want to reduce the cut, so we turn this in the minus direction for 3/4 of a millimetre or so. Okay, now we have calibrated the stops, but we now need to reset them because they're still effectively in their old position. And if I were to make the next two cuts with these in this position, we would get the same results as we already have. So I need to then reset this to 5 and reset this to 5. So there's our first two cuts. And third cut. So if you remember that this is going to be the corner where our two new cuts are going to meet. So this corner here, we have undercuts on here which we know about. So this corner here, that is a perfect corner. So all the corners, irrespective of what settings you make now, each corner will be as accurate as that. Okay, that's the calibration procedure. That's also how you cut a straightforward mount.